What if Deku was Atlantean Part 1? Now, this is a what if I basically had the idea for a couple, I think, a couple days ago or a day ago. Basically, after this video, I will be working on two other what ifs. The what ifs that I did say that were coming up or I canceled have been scrapped for better ideas. But basically, what I'm trying to say here is that pretty much this is a new what if concept. Not a new concept, but basically, since I already did what if Deku was Kryptonian, multiple other what ifs about Deku being something else other than just a quirk person or other than just being human. Basically, I'm going to be doing what if Deku was from Atlantis or was Atlantean. Now I'll start the story and begin in Deku's birth. Now basically we talk about Deku's ancestors and his family first to understand the story, or understand his, heritage. As we are taken back into pretty much this universe's time frame and heroes. In this universe, basically, pretty much King, I think, the king, or the original king, pretty much, Deku, or aka in the DC universe, pretty much Arthur, or pretty much Arthur's grandfather on his mother's side, the queen. Basically, or the princess, I think. But basically, pretty much we start a story and we see that pretty much Atlantis, how it would fall, and how it would pretty much adapt would be pretty much exactly the same. Basically, Atlantis being a somewhat paradise underwater. Now basically what happened during this time frame, pretty much, time would have passed and everything would have played out the same. Deku's mother would have gone to the surface land and Deku's mother would be changed a little bit. She would basically just be she would basically be, Inko Midoriya. She would have the same appearance of Inko Midoriya, when she was younger, and pretty much about that. So basically, she would meet up with Deku's father, pretty much, what was it? Asashi on a beach one day, when Asashi was just thinking alone, clearing his head. Now in this canon, Asashi would have been, Asashi would have been a type of, I guess, fisherman slash, job jumper. Basically what would be happening is pretty much Deku's father would be job after job after job, getting a lot of money, basically moving jobs and also moving places. But eventually when he came to marry Inko, or when he fell in love with Inko years later, after Inko came to the surface world and found Sashi, basically they would, sell themselves near, I guess, a lighthouse. No, not a lighthouse, but it was a house near Dago Beach, the first place where Inko would arrive to Japan and find Asashi. She would learn Japanese, and pretty much, what happened is, pretty much, she would live a life with Asashi. But when Arthur was born, and when Deku was born, he would pretty much be born half human, half Atlantean, half quirked. So Asashi would have a fire quirk plus his mother, or Deku's mother, being an Atlantean in this canon, plus his father also being a quirk person slash human. Basically what happened is Deku would be born and, would be able to tie all three worlds together. Humans, quirk people, and Atlanteans all together, basically being that bridge. And basically what happened is pretty much, or maybe Deku would be more Atlantean than quirk person, but we'll get more into what Deku's quirk is going to be. And basically what would happen is Deku would have basically, Deku would have had a semi-okay childhood. Now, the same thing would have happened. Atlantis soldiers would have tried to pretty much, come to the house and take Inko. They would have succeeded, and Inko would have had to go with them. Basically, her making sure to keep pretty much Deku a secret so they wouldn't take him. And Deku would be raised with his father and have a normal family. And basically what would happen is Asashi would have raised Deku as his own. Basically Asashi getting a job as a fisherman and also him taking up a couple other jobs that are pretty short but can give him enough money to buy or support Deku. Now, basically, his father would be paid a pretty well good job, and pretty much Deku's father would have raised Deku for the first 15 years of his life. The last year, where we start our story, would basically be pretty much Saji taking an overseas job and going over there and wishing Deku a good luck, saying that I'll make plans to come here and visit and to try to get as much money as I can from this job so he can be set. Basically, him saying goodbye to Deku right before Deku's last week of school before the 10-month arc training. And basically, what happened is Deku had gone to school, and in this canon, pretty much when Deku was growing up, pretty much we would see that Deku's dormant Atlantean gene plus quirk DNA didn't really mix very well, other than just blank human DNA and Atlantean DNA. Basically, his lack of a quirk in canon, or his pretty much father's side of his quirk, would have been dampening his Atlantean abilities. But only signs Deku would get, or signs we would see Deku would be Atlantean, is that Deku was on the swimming team in school, and pretty much Deku was actually born with a very natural, very well, I guess, built body. Him being built kind of like a more taller, athletic swimmer bod that he had in canon after the 10-month art train, but him being about, let's say, about the same height as Bakugo, or maybe even taller, but I'm pretty sure the same height as Bakugo. And basically what happened is pretty much Deku would have, trained himself in this canon because he wouldn't be taught down to, because Deku would have a little bit more of a cocky streak to him. Or not cocky streak, but he would have a little bit more of a, I guess, Rolly King type of vibe. He wouldn't want to be treated, or he wouldn't want to be, bullied. What would happen is pretty much from afar, people would have been watching Deku, making sure he was okay. But let's just get back in the story. Now, basically, what would have happened is Deku would have been, going to school, and he wouldn't be as bullied as much, since people would think he had a quirk, since he would be swimming unnormally fast sometimes, doing the swim competitions or doing pretty much, the racing on the swim team. And basically, what happened is normally Deku would have been the top of the swim team. Basically, him feeling like he can think clearly underwater, like he can be himself, like he was at peace, like he was home. Basically, him loving going to the beach and swimming deep down into the coral reefs and stuff like that. And basically, what happened is pretty much when when Deku became 15, pretty much, or when Deku was 15, he started to see that he could hold his breath a lot longer. And then now, since Deku's 16, things started to change a little bit. Well, now Deku's about to turn 16 in a couple months. Basically, what happened is pretty much, Deku would have trained himself even harder, since he would still want to go to UA and become a hero. Basically, when the quirk doctors, or when Deku's father would take him to the quirk doctor, they would say that Deku had a quirk, but it would be very long until it activates. Even so, he might not even ever activate it in his life, so we should just label him as quirkless. Basically, Deku being kind of distraught, but him not letting that break him down in this canon. Now, basically, what would happen is Deku would have trained himself in pretty much the last week of school, since he would be in the same class as Bakugo, same as canon. Bakugo would have tried to bully Deku. He would have succeeded, but Deku would always try to fight back. Basically, Bakugo not liking this and trying to keep Deku in his place, but Deku saying I have a quirk, and Bakugo saying that people aren't this late of a bloomer, Deku. You're 16. You're supposed to get your quirk when you were 5. Or you're almost 16, Deku. You were supposed to get your quirk when you were 5. It's never gonna happen. You're quirkless. Admit it. And basically, Deku getting pretty, angry that day, and him pretty much chucking both of them out the window. Deku literally bolting towards Bakugo and pushing him through a window, and the window was open, so they didn't really break anything. As they would fall into a nearby bush, Bakugo would have used the explosion to cushion his fall. Him barely breaking anything, having a couple scars and scrapes. And Deku would have fell down to the ground, and he would have hit his head, basically then falling near the pool area outside. Deku falling into the water, but hitting his head on the side of the pool. Now, as Bakugo would walk off, him scoffing, saying to watch your back, him assuming that Deku was conscious, he would just walk away, not looking at Deku, him just being angry. As soon we would see Deku would be knocked out in some sort of fever dream in the water. Him thinking something is wrong. Him feeling like he needs to get up. As Deku would wake up, he would try to swim to the, well, very much the top, but he would be in a deep part of the water, or a deep part of the pool, and basically he would try to swim himself up, but he wouldn't get enough breath, and he wouldn't have enough strength on him to get up as fast as he could. Then basically he would start to lose breath, lose water, and eventually out of nowhere, a boost of energy or some sort of force from his legs pushed him forwards out of the water, and he went 6 feet out of the water, on the surface of the water, 6 feet up out of the water, and landed superhero style on the nearby floor near the water. Basically, Deku being surprised on why or how he did this. Basically, him looking at his body and him noticing some sort of, some sort of cuts on his neck. Basically, him looking at it and him poking a finger in it and him seeing that it's kind of sensitive. As he would go home, he would try to figure out what was happening, and him still noticing that his father wasn't there. Basically, him looking at his, well, newfound gills. Now, basically, Deku would be very confused on why this is happening, but eventually he would just assume that it was his quirk that he can breathe in the water. Now, basically, Deku said that's why I love swimming so much. Basically, he was trying to make up reasons why his quirk took so long, and also reasons why he loved swimming so much, because if his quirk was dormant. Basically, blah just making up things. But over time, because this will be the last day, over time, the next month, Deku will be testing out this power he has, or that he thinks is a quirk, basically in the water. Now, he would soon figure out that he had all the base abilities of an Atlantean, but not being able to control them. Only ability he would be unlocked, or he would be training with, is the ability to, well, swim underwater at very fast speeds. Like Atlanteans can swim at very fast speeds, even a Mach 1 underwater. Basically, some people saying Aquaman could probably swim faster than Flash if Flash was running on top of water and Aquaman was right on the water. But basically, I'm pretty sure Aquaman, I pretty much looked it up, pretty much how fast Aquaman, or not any Atlantean, but since Deku is basically this universe's Aquaman, this is basically how fast he can swim. Now, basically, yeah, that's basically how fast he can swim. 150 miles per hour for at least 4 hours with no breaks or anything. But basically doing this, well, period or time duration, Deku wouldn't know how long he can swim, but basically he'll be swimming at about the same speed as Aquaman was in the movie. Him just learning his strength and his speed, as you would eventually come across another type of humanoid or a human looking, well, water breathing person, and this person would be Deku, and this would be Voko, I think it was. Pretty much what would happen is Voko would have introduced himself to Deku. Him noticing Deku's skills and also his way, well, the way he was swimming. And basically him saying that he's seen some quirk people in these waters, but he's never seen somebody like you. You're just like. And basically he would try to test Deku. Him eventually noticing that Deku was Atlantean, with something added onto him. He couldn't figure out what it was. And basically what happened is pretty much Deku would have tried to pretty much, well, tell him, like, I have a quirk, I'm not what you're saying I am. But over time, Roko would have trained Deku to use his Atlantean abilities at the best they could. Him learning how to swim as fast as Aquaman would in canon, as in the movie. Him also learning how to do a type of water spell to push water away from him to make a kind of an air bubble. And also him learning how to pretty much control his Atlantean strength, speed, and agility after he would unlock those abilities later on in the month, or later on in the months. Basically, it would be the 5 months later, or a big 5 months later, and Deku would unlock most of all the base abilities and all the abilities of Atlanteans. So let me list out the abilities Deku has. Breathe underwater. Pretty much the ability to swim underwater at very, very fast speeds. Also, the ability to pretty much was it superhuman durability, strength, and reflexes and speed. Also, a super metabolism or super endurance, so he could swim at those speeds without getting tired. So basically, pretty much to put it simple, Deku has all the abilities of Aquaman. Pretty much him having pretty much the abilities of Aquaman to a T. And basically, pretty much, if you're wondering how durable Atlanteans are, they're basically durable enough to go at very, very, very deep levels in pretty much the water area. Even go as so far as maybe even the Mariana Trench. And basically, what would happen is pretty much what I'm trying to say here is Atlantean skin or body are basically built for going underwater. That's basically why they're called Atlanteans, or why they live in Atlantis. They're built for living underwater, even giving birth underwater. So basically, but it's simple. Atlantis is. Oh, was it? Atlanteans are pretty strong. And also, another ability that Atlanteans have, they are very unacceptable, or pretty much they're very durable towards toxins from pretty much, below pufferfish, or any type of venom or toxin, any under creature, or any under creature animal from the water, or any type of poison that creature has, is nearly unaffected, or they're nearly unaffected by that. Basically, pretty much what Deku would have been exploring these abilities, and basically, since Atlanteans are pretty durable, it's pretty hard to, damage them. But pretty much shurikens or any type of other things, they are pretty hard to get through a very abundance of layer of skin. Scrapes, cuts, and little neats like that, or little, pretty much cuts like that, are non pretty much non-happening with the Atlanteans, since their skin is so well durable. Now basically, pretty much Deku would have been training with Volko, and pretty much would have been doing this for the next couple 10 months. Basically, eventually Deku getting pretty good at his skill. Now eventually Volko would have told Deku his heritage, his father, and everything about Atlanteans and why his father kept this from him. Deku would obviously be mad at first, but he would understand that his father was trying to keep him safe from Atlantis. He would be told about his brother, or Deku's half-brother, and his half-brother, the Sea Master or Ocean Master in this universe, basically will be a current villain in this universe, or will be a current villain in this story, but I'm not going to get into him until part 2. Now basically, pretty much, he would have told Deku mostly everything you need to know about Aquaman, or everything that happened to Deku, that his mother was taken away, and stuff like that. And also, pretty much him saying that it's an Atlantean woman at, UA. I've looked into some people I have in the surface area, and they have, some sort of I guess, information on another Atlantean that goes or attends UA, the school you're trying to go to. Is that right, Zuku? Now, Deku would have answered yes, and basically, pretty much he would say, or Roku would have said, make friends with this other Atlantean. Keep her safe. And I've been told that she's a woman. Basically, Deku says okay, and pretty much, that would be the last time we see Voko for now, at least, for the rest of this What If. Now, basically, we said Deku would have gotten ready and would have gone to pretty much the entry exams after the 10-month art training. In the last 2 months would have just been Deku just chilling. Him doing normal training, sprints, and also working on his swims. And also working on his durability, strength, and hand-to-hand combat, since he would learn a lot about hand-to-hand combat, fighting with a bow staff, and also a spear. Him also being gifted a trident from Voko. The Aquaman's trident. And basically, him being gifted this trident from Voko. Now, basically, pretty much Voko would have told him to keep the secret and not to use it under any circumstances. Now, this wouldn't be the Trident of Aquaman, but it would have been a type of model. It wouldn't be the full one or the ancient one. Deku would get that in part 3 or part 2 after a very more in-depth story. Now, basically, what happened is pretty much Deku would have grabbed this and what he said, is this what I think it is? The Trident? Basically, Voko, since he would tell him the stories of Atlantis, he would tell him that it wasn't the real one, but it was a model that that his grandfather used before he got the real one. And basically saying that this one was a model, and your mother used this for a short amount of time as well. And basically him saying that it's yours now, you should keep it, but one day you'll be worthy enough to have the real one. Basically, Voko, well, pretty much leaving Deku for now and telling him to keep it safe. Now, this Trident wouldn't have all the abilities of controlling the seven seas as, the other, pretty much, or the real Trident, but this Trident would have been made out of solid gold as well, and basically also would have had pretty much the only difference it would just be a normal Trident. Being honest, it would just be a Trident that can normally pierce through mainly anything. And also it would be very much light. Very light. So Deku can use it with very limited type of strain on his arms. And also this blade would have had a slight type of water manipulation. It wouldn't be able to control seas like Moses. That's how they describe the abilities of the real Trident. Basically, this Trident would have had a similar ability, but basically this Trident's ability would have been similar to, let's say, normal like water magic. Not being able to control whole seas or oceans like the real one can, but enough to make a a wave or maybe even a tsunami if you're pushing it. But stuff like that, like a whole tsunami, like a whole cataclysmic event or flooding a whole city or a town, the real one can do that, but not this one. Basically, this one only being able to do, pretty much very high level water magic, but not, huge god level water magic or water manipulation. And also, this sword could store water in it. Basically, if Deku ever got dehydrated, he could take the water out of the sword, but the sword would become a lot more weaker and duller if it was completely dehydrated and it was completely just, left there for years on years and years without being touched or, in water. Now, basically, what happened is Deku would have gone to pretty much the training or the entry exams. Basically, him signing up for a support item, him signing his support item to be the Trident. Now, basically, what happened, Deku would show up there in the same jumpsuit, green jumpsuit, but it would have been a lot more of a darker green, and he would have had the sleeves rolled up. Now, basically, Deku would have gotten ready, and pretty much they would have started. Now, the written exam, Deku would have gotten pretty good, and basically, for the physical exam, that's when this starts to happen. Now, Deku would have ran into Ochaku by not tripping, but by bumping into her, and basically him saying sorry, and basically helping her up as he would see her. Now, pretty much, she will say thank you, and basically walk off. And basically, guys, you can decide which class member in pretty much, which class member in basically, the class, or, the anime should be Atlantis, or should be Atlantean. And basically what happened is Deku would have gotten ready, and they would have gotten started. Deku being in the back, so he wouldn't really, conversate with Bakugo, Ida, or Todoroki, or not Todoroki, but he wouldn't conversate with Ida or Bakugo. So basically they would start the match, and Deku would have instantly start to sprint past them. Basically him crushing towards robots, throwing the pretty much, the spear into robots left and right, cutting them away, and cutting them into two. And basically him throwing it like a spear left and right, since it is kind of a spear, but it's a trident. Basically him throwing it like a spear left and right, using it as kind of a surfboard, sometimes leaning off of sides of the building. Basically, he would have been pretty much just taking down robots left and right, putting some Aquaman mojo onto it. And basically, he would have, well, pretty much speed blitzed throughout the whole match, and eventually Deku would have come across the Zero Pointer robot. As he would try to run away, he would see how Chaku had been stuck under some rubble, her being able to push it off a little bit, but not enough to get out of the way. Deku would have been able to run over there and help pretty much the rock off of her and basically get her out of the way. As the robot was about to step on Deku, Deku would have looked at the robot and basically his heart would start to speed up. His body would start to slow down. And what would happen is Deku would have closed his eyes. And what would happen, when he opened his eyes, it would seem like everything was in slow motion. Like he wasn't in slow motion, but was moving a lot more slower. And he started to move around, him feeling like he was underwater. And now this would be Deku's quirk. Now Deku's quirk would have been someone's, well, unique. I was just going to give him plain water manipulation, or basically something else. But basically what would happen is his quirk would have been a type of, well, I guess, power slower. Basically, pretty much Deku can slow down time like it's moving in water. So the robot's moving like it's being slowed down by water, kind of like water slows down how you run in it or how you pretty much swim in it. Basically, slowing down your movements, giving Deku time to react to movements, like if you're punching something. And in real time, it seems like Deku's moving incredibly fast. Like his reaction time is godlike. And basically what happened is Deku would have gotten out of the Zero Pointer's way. And basically Zero Pointer would have stomped like nothing happened. But Deku would have been swooshed out of the way. Or Deku would have swooshed himself away. Basically he would go on to take out other Hero Pointers. After that, Deku would have left and he would have gone back to the Daku Beach. Zico would have been gone. But basically he would go back to Daku Beach and try to train. Try to figure out what this new ability was. He would test it out on small cans that were being thrown at him, and also using a type of tennis ball, pretty much was a shooter, to pretty much shoot at him and using or testing out the ability there, like catching the balls and throwing it back. Basically, Deku, when he's in this slow motion state, he can move freely, but he can only use it for about a minute until it completely goes down and he has to wait an hour between each inner pulse. Now basically Deku could push it and just use it right after the 1 minute, but that will put a huge toll on his body, and also he'll dehydrate a lot more quicker, him having to hydrate somewhere else. And normally when you're fighting, when you're a pro hero, you're not always around water. Now basically pretty much what happened is, well, Deku would have, well, trained his body a little bit more that day, and basically what happened is, don't worry guys, I'm going to give Deku's going to still have the Aquaman ability, as in being able to communicate with fish later on in the what if. Basically for now, this is going to be Deku's special ability. Now basically pretty much what happened is Deku would sleep that night, and the next day Deku would get the note from Yui that he got in. A couple days later, or a day later, Deku would have gone to UA, and he would have gone to class 1A. He would walk in there, he would see Bakugo and a couple other students. As he would sit down, we would soon come across Ochaku, and Ochaku would have thanked him for saving her, and blah blah blah. Now Deku would have said, no problem, and pretty much that would be the end of it. Not the end of it, but basically Deku would say, it's all my pleasure. And basically, him pretty much saying, are you okay? And just making small talk with Ochaku, even flirting with her a little bit. So Deku would be kind of an Aquaman type, well, I guess Prince type thing. Kind of flirting, kind of like the CW, kind of like the, I guess, kind of like the DCU Aquaman, but still had the comic book Aquaman type vibe going on. Basically what happened is pretty much Deku would have, well, eventually pretty much gone or sat down, and Ochaku would have sat down as well, after Aizawa would have introduced himself, telling the class that to get off their lazy bums and to meet them in the gym room and get ready and get quirk assessments going. what would happen is Deku would start to get into his gym clothes, and basically they would see some scars on Deku, but they wouldn't be deep scars. It would be kind of scrapes, since Atlantean skin would be pretty much a way more a concept to cutting and spearing, so Deku wouldn't have a lot of scars, but some of them would have been permanent from pretty much Voko's training. And since Atlanteans live for actually a pretty long time, 150 years, that's how long an Atlantean can live, or more. I mean, basically, yeah, so Atlanteans live for a very long time, and that's why Voko has Voko has a lot of training experience and has learned some sword fighting from one of the members of King Arthur's board. Basically, him being a part or being around for that time frame. Now, basically, him being or over exceeding the normal age of an average Atlantean. Now, basically, what would happen is pretty much Deku went and got ready, and basically started to get into the quirk assessments. Deku would have been told to throw the ball first, since he would have got the highest score in the quirk assessments, since he would be the fastest one working in the quirk assessments. He would grab the ball and he would chuck it as hard as he possibly could. Him chucking it far enough, plus his Atlantean strength and all his already existing human strength he had because he worked out, he threw it pretty far. Now, basically, what happened is Deku would have gotten about like second place in this throw, and basically what happened is Bakugo would have said, "How did you throw that, you nerd? You're supposed to be quirkless." Him going off on Deku and trying to attack him. Deku would have backed up, and Aizawa would have stopped Bakugo from doing anything. As this would continue, we get switched to the sand jump, and Deku would have aced that pretty quickly, him having a pretty good amount of agility. The race, Deku would have gone pretty well, and the good test strength, Deku would have gone pretty well. Altogether, Deku would get third place or second place. Now, basically, what would happen after that, they'll be all sent back home with their syllabus, and Deku would have walked back home. He would have talked to most of the other girls in class, just trying to get to know everybody, including a couple other students that he saw on the way back home, like Denki and Kirishima, and stuff like that. Now, what would happen is Deku would make himself back home, and as he would be at the house, he would see something in the water, or the beach area, since it would be kind of a beach house. Deku would have gotten out, and he would start to look around. As he would look around, he would hear the dock going on, and he would just think it was just the wind. As he would see something in the water, he would see pretty much something as he would see near the beach, like right where the tide was. He would see a woman staring at him. Basically, this woman whispering to himself, "So this is, the king, the future king." She would have said, "Interesting," and would have walked off. Basically, Deku trying to follow her, but seeing that she would just vanish, him being very confused. As he would just go back into class, or not, go back into the house, go to sleep that night so he can get good night rest for tomorrow. Now I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. I'm finna go to sleep because it's straight up 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm recording this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. Next video, I'm gonna be uploading a couple more videos, but I'm also gonna be uploading a new what if. I'm gonna be uploading a lot more Bell what ifs, and I'm gonna be uploading a lot more live action what ifs because I haven't done those in a long time. So I'm gonna try to do more MCU what ifs. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day.